Hi, I'm Lauren Dawes, and this is Trig Identities Discussion 2. First, we're going to verify a trig identity algebraically. Example number 1. Prove cosine squared theta times secant squared theta minus 1 equals sine squared theta. Step 1. Cosine squared theta times tangent squared theta equals sine squared theta. Well, secant squared theta minus 1 is a Pythagorean identity, so secant squared theta minus 1 is also equivalent to tangent squared theta. Step number 2. Sine squared theta over tangent squared theta times tangent squared theta over 1 equals sine squared theta. Cosine squared theta is a tangent and cotangent ratio identity, so it is equivalent to sine squared theta over tangent squared theta. Step number 3. Sine squared theta over tangent squared theta times tangent squared theta over 1 equals sine squared theta. You are going to cross out tangent squared theta on both fractions and simplify. Step 4. Sine squared theta over 1 equals sine squared theta. You're going to reduce and have almost your final product. Solution. Sine squared theta equals sine squared theta. This is a trig identity. Example number 2. Secant squared theta times 1 minus cosine squared theta equals tangent squared theta. Step 1. Secant squared theta multiplied by sine squared theta equals tangent squared theta. 1 minus cosine squared theta is a Pythagorean identity, and it's equivalent to sine squared theta. Step 2. 1 divided by cosine squared theta times sine squared theta equals tangent squared theta. Secant squared theta is a reciprocal identity and is equal to 1 over cosine squared theta. Step 3. 1 over cosine squared theta times sine squared theta over 1 equals tangent squared theta. You are going to set it up like fractions and multiply. Step 4. Sine squared theta over cosine squared theta equals tangent squared theta. You're going to combine and make one fraction because you're going to simplify the ones. Solution. Tangent squared theta equals tangent squared theta. Sine squared theta over cosine squared theta is a tangent ratio identity, so they are equal. This is a trig identity. Example number 3. Prove sine theta minus cosine theta divided by sine theta equals 1 minus cotangent theta. Step 1. Sine theta divided by sine theta minus cosine theta divided by sine theta equals 1 minus cotangent theta. We're going to make two fractions, and sine theta can be the denominator for both. So it's going to be sine theta over sine theta, and then you're going to have negative cosine theta divided by sine theta. Step 2. 1 minus cosine theta divided by sine theta. Sine theta over sine theta simplifies, and it equals 1. And then you're going to leave cosine theta divided by sine theta. Step 3. 1 minus cotangent theta equals 1 minus cotangent theta. Cosine theta divided by sine theta is a cotangent ratio identity, so it is equal. Solution. 1 minus cotangent theta equals 1 minus cotangent theta. This is a trig identity. Example number 4. Prove sine squared theta multiplied by cosecant squared theta minus 1 equals cosine squared theta. Step 1. Sine squared theta multiplied by cotangent squared theta equals cosine squared theta. Cosecant squared theta minus 1 is a Pythagorean identity, and it's equal to cotangent squared theta. Step 2. Sine squared theta over 1 times cosine squared theta divided by sine squared theta. Cotangent squared theta is equivalent to cosine squared theta divided by sine squared theta because it is a cotangent ratio identity. Step 3. Sine squared theta divided by 1 times cosine squared theta divided by sine squared theta equals cosine squared theta. We're going to set them up like fractions, and we're going to simplify the sine squared theta. Solution. Cosine squared theta equals cosine squared theta. This is a trig identity. This is how we have solved or verified trig identities algebraically. Now we are going to move to verifying a trig identity graphically. Example number 1. Prove cosine theta equals sine theta divided by tangent theta. To verify a trig identity graphically, it's very simple. You just plug each side of the equation into a graphing calculator. So I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to plug in cosine. I'm going to plug in cosine x as my y1, and then I'm going to plug in sine x divided by tangent x as my y2, as you can see there. And then once I press enter, once I press graph, you're going to see that there's only one line, but there's two things we plugged in as y. Well, if it's a trig identity, then it's going to be the same line, and you're not going to be able to see two because they overlap. In this picture I drew, you can see that they overlap. The purple is cosine theta, and the orange is sine theta divided by tangent theta, and they overlap. And this is a trig identity because cosine theta equals sine theta divided by tangent theta. Example number 2. Prove sine squared theta equals 1 minus cosine squared theta. Well, we're going to do the exact same thing, and we're going to plug the numbers. We're going to plug each side into the graphing calculator. So I'm going to plug in sine squared theta as my y1. So I'm going to plug in sine x squared as my y1. And then for my y2, I'm going to plug in 1 minus cosine squared theta. So 1 minus cosine x squared. And then once I press graph, it's going to be the exact same thing as the last one. There's only going to be one line, and it's because they overlap. And if you are confused with this, you can also press second table and see that the numbers are the exact same for y1 and y2. So this just proves again that they overlap. I drew the graph again, and you can see that they overlap right here. The green is sine squared theta, and the blue is 1 minus cosine squared theta. This is a trig identity. Sine squared theta equals 1 minus cosine squared theta. Thanks for watching.